Hail, and welcome to Satanic Musings. I'm Reverend Odinson, an ordained minister of Satan. In today's musing, I want to discuss what modern Satanism is, how I found my way to it, and what it is I actually believe. Throughout this video, I'm going to gloss over quite a number of ideas and concepts, because this video is sort of a broad look at modern Satanism and my journey through it. Later videos will pick out specific things and delve deeper into them. As an example, one of the videos I have planned is all about rituals and symbolism. That's enough of the preamble. Let's get into it. Let's begin with what modern Satanism is and is not. Modern Satanism, sometimes called Neo-Romantic Satanism or Rational Satanism, is a non-theistic religion, in some part inspired by the depictions of Satan in the works of Enlightenment and Romantic-era writers. Romantic-era writers in particular were fond of using biblical mythology to explore their thoughts on political theory and philosophy. In those works, Satan is often used as a foil to tyranny, an eternal rebel who stands against a brutal celestial tyrant. Most of those writers did not actually call themselves Satanists. Many were actually deists and atheists who merely invoked Satan or the adversary as a concept. Some were exploring esoteric practice, but most were not. Modern Satanism takes up that perspective on the literary figure of Lucifer, but goes one step further to actually invoke this character as a figurehead. He is a symbol, like the red stripes of the U.S. flag are meant to symbolize the blood shed by patriots. Lucifer is a symbol of rebellion in the face of theocracy. Theocratic institutions are our celestial tyranny. We are collectively Lucifer, standing in opposition to it. That invocation of Lucifer really is a large part of Satanism. It's probably the side most seen by the public through protest and legal action. But it does go deeper than that. Modern Satanism also has tenets designed to act as moral guideposts to creating a more rational, empathetic, and just world. Each tenet is meant to inspire Satanists to live up to the ideals of individual liberty, bodily autonomy, equality, rationality, and enlightenment, and to approach the world with a sober view of reality based on our best understanding of science. These tenets are not treated as passed from on high by an arbiter of perfect morality. In fact, these tenets invite the written world to take a backseat to the result of inspiring the sort of actions and thoughts which make up the spirit of the tenets. Satanists are invited by the tenets themselves to question, analyze, and interrogate even the most foundational beliefs of modern Satanism. Rationality over dogma and empathy over tyranny. One more aspect of modern Satanism is the esoteric side. Rituals, mindfulness, meditation, and so on. One popular ritual, for instance, is unbaptism. Think of it as a ritualized rejection or symbolic exit from the religious structure that one was brought up in. Some rituals are meant as a form of protest, some are mindfulness exercises, some are psychodramatic theater meant to elicit an emotional response or even trigger a religious experience. And none of this requires believing that these experiences are supernatural in origin. In short, modern Satanism is a religion free of gods or superstition, founded on Enlightenment principles, with its own celebrations, rituals, and practices like any other religion. What modern Satanism isn't is people believing in and worshiping a literal Satan. It's not casting magic, praying, or other supernatural mysticism. It's not human sacrifice. It's not ritual abuse. In fact, in spite of what Hollywood might portray, there's never been a single case of satanic ritual abuse or human sacrifice according to the FBI. Meanwhile, in mainstream religions such as Christianity, there are deaths and harms every year from rituals such as exorcism and circumcision. Like many in this nation, I was raised Christian, and for a number of my adult years, I maintained my faith by continually distorting the Bible as it made less and less sense to my personal reality. Toward the end, the Bible was poetic, corrupted by the hand of man, and God was some benevolent being that had to adhere to a non-interference clause as though he were a starship captain from Star Trek. all powerful, but completely hands off. I had to bend my view of the Bible and God, because in reading the Bible, God came off as an immoral monster. Satan was the bad guy for what? Offering knowledge? Anything other than blind obedience to the celestial dictator is evil? Good and bad doesn't matter. All that matters is faith. If any of this were true, Satan would be the closest thing to the hero that exists in that book. None of this made sense, and it all had to be contorted and justified in my mind. Let me tell you, it didn't last. It's absurd on its face, and I knew it then too. I reached out to various churches trying to rediscover my faith, but every time I did that, it only seemed to push me further and further away. When I finally admitted that I had shed my faith, I tried out different forms of Eastern mysticism, but that lasted maybe a month or two before I had to admit that was all bullshit too. Soon, I was just calling myself an atheist. I think I was looking for the comfort and, sort of familiar blanket of religion in other traditions, but all I found was laughable BS. Free of the shackles of faith, however, I did find myself exploring all sorts of interesting new ideas. It was exhilarating. I had always been hopelessly idealistic from a young age, constantly involved in protest and advocating for unrealistic, lofty goals. But now, armed with new philosophies and thoughts to explore, that side of me only grew. It didn't take much self-discovery to settle on not just being an atheist, but an anti-theist. And what I mean by anti-theist is holding the position that human condition would be improved if completely devoid of faith in deities, the supernatural, and magical thinking. Being realistic, I don't think that could ever happen, but I often pondered how we could get closer to that reality. What would have to happen to encourage more people out of their religions? I always went back to the idea that we need a secular solution to the positive social, moral, and community aspects of religious institutions. In spite of all the awful, there are actually positive aspects of those religious structures to be found if you dig for them. If only we could strip away all the toxic elements and leave only the cohesive bonding elements that fulfill certain human needs. Certainly, though, there was nothing I could do to make this happen. It was all just hypothetical. Fast forward many years, and it feels like the nation is falling down around my ears. Tyranny is breathing down my neck, and our liberties are vanishing faster than I can blink. I felt a strong need to jump back into activism and to get involved in actually pushing back. One of the first things I thought of was those cool Satanist peeps who do things like, put up Baphomet statues in defense of religious liberty. I went to the website, read what they had to say, and even more so, they sounded like my kind of people. But as I read further, I started to realize that this went deeper than just an activist group. There was something more to what they were doing. The more I read, the more I learned, the more I was intrigued. The deeper I dug, the more I started to feel that this was where I belonged, and these were the ideas I have long venerated, but never so eloquently put into words. Beyond that, though, these people were doing what I imagined. They were offering a place for the human animal to explore religious experiences, to have community and fellowship, to have all the positive things religion can offer without the toxicity and folly that comes with faith and magical thinking. And it went even further. It embraced the scientific ideals of scrutiny and the adversarial process, inviting ideas and beliefs to be interrogated. I stumbled, really, into a religion where I could enjoy the trappings of ritual and religion, free from all the crap I despised, and all while having my beliefs constantly questioned and scrutinized. Moreover, the beliefs fit perfectly with my idealistic streak, and nurtured it rather than asking me to subdue it for the sake of practicality or pragmatism. In short, I found exactly where I belong. It also didn't help that I already dressed the part, and I've always been something of a weirdo. But I didn't just become a Satanist. At some point, I decided to pursue becoming a minister, something that takes time, commitment, and study. I don't think there was any one sort of thing that inspired me to do so, but rather as a symphony of inspirations all working in concert. I would say that my first inspiration is the passion I got from that dream I had so many years ago. That being part of building a place to indulge the ritualistic, religious side of human nature without shackling it to faith and superstition. I wanted not only to be a part of it, but be a part of building it. My second inspiration came in the form of fulfilling the role of the counselor. It will likely surprise some of the people in my life that primarily know me in different contexts, but in more than a few friend circles I belong to, I have ended up the shoulder to cry on, someone to vent and, ask advice. I also have found myself organizing help and aid for people in rough spots. I've always kind of felt natural in that role, and I couldn't exactly tell you why. It didn't take long for the same thing to happen in my Satanist congregation. The counselor is one of the roles a minister fills for their community, and I felt drawn to that. In fact, if the opportunity arises, I would love to be a chaplain in hospitals and prisons, offering secular comfort to people when they need it the most. When my middle child was diagnosed with cancer, the hospital he got his treatments at had a chapel anyone could go to. There were even religious leaders of all sorts of faiths who would frequent there to comfort people. But there was never a secular option. I would like to be a part of changing that. There should be a secular option for that sort of comfort in our darkest hours. Finally, I have always been drawn to ritual and symbolism. I'm naturally theatric, artistic, and drawn to out there creative expressions. Being a minister of Satan means creating and performing rituals. It means being involved in marriage ceremonies, baptisms, and much, much more. This feeds my theatrical and creative side like I can't tell you. And I get to mix that expressive side of myself with my rebellious idealistic side, my interest in meditation and mindfulness, and even my hopeless romantic side when it comes to weddings and the like. I think ministry really is my calling in sort of a, non-supernatural sort of way. Besides, my mother always wanted me to be a man of the cloth. So what is it I actually believe? For one, I'm a very strong atheist, and as mentioned before in another video, I am a philosophical naturalist. I am confident that no gods exist, or anything supernatural for that matter. I am as confident in that claim as I am in my knowledge that the earth is a globe, that the sun will rise tomorrow, and that I exist. Rationally, I have to leave room for things like, what if we're all brains in a jar, and dumb crap like that. But let's be real. I think, therefore I am. We can play infinite numbers of what-if games I can't prove false. But we are all going to live our lives as if it's false because it would be irrational to do anything else. Holding such a belief and living as if something like that were true would have absolutely no utility. So for all practical purposes, I can say with confidence, there are no such things as gods, goblins, dragons, fairies, angels, demons, or anything else. I'm also anti-theist. I believe the world and the human condition would benefit if it rid itself of gods, faith, and belief in the supernatural. I don't believe that is attainable, but it is my ideal world. I do, however, believe, and neurological studies I'm aware of would seem to support this, that religious experiences are real. Not real in the sense of a supernatural world, not magical, not spiritual in the sense of a soul. They live in our psychology. They live in our minds, in our neurology. We are prone to them. Much the way Sagan spoke of magical experiences while gazing at the sky with wonder, religious experiences are a state of mind. In some ways, we can intentionally elicit these experiences through ritual. This is why mass rituals in mainstream religions can have such a grip on people, and those people can come away having had such profound experiences. Not because a spirit or God reaches out and touched them, but because our neurological makeup as human beings, as a social animal, is prone to these sorts of experiences. Regardless of your religion or lack thereof, if you really pay attention, I bet you will recognize plenty of rituals you perform in your life, be it around holidays, for special occasions, or just normal life. Psychologically speaking, symbolism also has a lot of power and utility. We honestly couldn't communicate the way we do without it. Reading and writing would be absolutely impossible without the ability to recognize symbolism. This weird shape symbolizes a sound, and this combination of sounds symbolizes an idea. I'm not educated enough in this direction, but I would speculate that the human ability to recognize symbolism and our tendency to be creatures of ritual are likely both tied to our ability to communicate and be social animals. What I wouldn't give to interview someone with proper education to explore that idea. To add to that, we are all brought up in cultures where religious iconography, symbols, aesthetics, architecture, and more are prevalent and, more importantly, associated with certain power, prestige, and experience. The imagery and pageantry elicits a psychological response. With all of that in mind, along with recent discoveries in mindfulness, it leads me to believe that ritual, symbolism, and religious trappings can be used to achieve desired mental states or experiences. And there's another thing I would love to talk to an educated individual about. Do symbols elicit the psychological response they do because it is innate? Like, as in the way certain shapes are associated with predatory silhouettes so they can cause fear? Or are these socially conditioned? I imagine that both play a role somehow, but I would really be interested to explore how much of each and what's playing off of what. I'm getting way away from myself. I also believe that without a grand moral arbiter, without morality written into the cosmos, it is our job to passionately argue for what it is we believe in. Because if we were all gone tomorrow, generations of great thinkers and all their work in philosophy, reason, science, and more will be gone. Without us to pass on what we've learned and how we've grown, it all goes away. If we allow tyranny to stomp out what we hold dear, it doesn't just come back. Because God is not written on our hearts. Morality is not written in the stars. Morality is explored in the mind, argued, reasoned, and fought for. And for me, Lucifer, Satan, the eternal rebel, is a powerful symbol of that fight. When I look at the image of Satan, I don't feel ill where others might. I see freedom and rebelliousness. Hail Satan, and hail yourself.